jumped headlong into commodities. It's all on one side of that play, so they push things higher. So we don't really know what the oil price would be in the absence of that kind of speculation, but there's just no question that they've exaggerated. It could be $20, it could be $60, it could be $80. I don't know, but there's just no question that's contributed significantly to the move.
So, Doug, drawing all this down to our listeners, how does this speculation, how do these fundamentals affect gas prices at the pump?
Well, who knows? If let's say a quarter of the run-up in oil prices is the result of speculation, I'm just picking that number out of the air, but, so say oil prices would be more like closer to $100 than $140 in the absence of the speculative energy. So that would mean, gas would be, $3 instead of $4? So we'll still have high gasoline prices, and I don't think we're ever going to see $2 gas again in this country.
Is there a direct correlation between oil prices and gas prices and the profits of oil companies?
Well, believe it or not, actually, gas prices are not as high as they would be if the usual historical relation between crude prices and gas prices were prevailing. We'd see gas more like $5 or $5.50 now, given the crude price. And some of the refiners are seeing their margins a little pinched. They haven't raised the price as much at the pump as the Saudis have been getting, for their oil. But certainly gas prices are very, very high. But
so
could be even higher.
Yeah, can we assume they're going to go up?
It seems that's kind of inevitable. They're going to creep higher. Especially now we've pushed about 400 to 140 in crude markets, so it looks like gas prices can continue to rise. I think $5 is really not out of the question. But the other side of the fact that the speculators are so heavily in the energy markets is that it could be a bubble that will burst. George Soros has been talking this up, which probably means that George Soros is short oil.
And everyone else should probably do that now, as George Soros is a pretty good indicator.
Yeah, well, George Soros is famous for taking a position and then writing letters to the editor and such, so his position magically then becomes profitable.
I think that's called front-running in the market.
Yeah, well, he's a master of it. He did that with the British pound back in, 1990, 91.
That's correct.
In letter to the editor of the Times prompted the collapse in the pound then. So there is a chance that this will burst, and we'll see a substantial decline in oil prices. But I don't think we're going to see anything like the kinds of prices we got used to in the 80s and 90s when they were very low.
Any idea what we should speculate on next? Is it pork bellies or orange juice?
I don't know. Canned goods?
Yeah, we did the orange juice thing a while back, right, with all the problems?
Yeah. Well, the food issue is very serious. I mean, that's not going to go away. Right. And, these resource issues are very real, and the speculators add some froth to it, but the fundamentals are not pleasant.
Right.
Doug, if you had an hour with our next president, what recommendations would you make?
Well, I think we need to get serious about alternative energy research and development. It's just we have to get beyond oil as quickly as humanly possible. So we need, in the short, medium term, we need conservation measures, which could, if we're serious about it, we really could significantly reduce our use of energy. I sublet office space from a publisher, high-minded, liberal, progressive publisher, and parts of the office are stuffy, so they run the air conditioner year-round to cool things off. In the middle of January, it's 26 degrees outside. They're running the air conditioner. We need to stop doing things like that. We need more hybrid cars and all those kinds of things that people could make short-term adjustments very, very pretty quickly. But then over the longer term, we just need to get beyond the oil age and into some kind of certainly ramping up solar is technically feasible, and wind energy and those sorts of underwater power and that sort of thing. But we also need some kind of breakthroughs that the private sector is not going to fund. If we look back on really the world-changing inventions of the last couple of decades, the movement of the computer and a lot of pharmaceuticals, both were heavily subsidized by the U.S. government. The Internet would not exist without the Defense Department. The modern computing would not exist without subsidies for decades from the Defense Department.
And some would say that all big companies are still subsidizing Microsoft by their extortion fees for the licensing.
Yeah, well, nice thing to point out on Bill Gates' last day of work at Microsoft. But I think it's urgent for the future of life on Earth, not to mention people's budgets, to make these kinds of investments in alternative energy research. And the poor of the world are not going to get less poor. I mean, a billion people living on $1 a day or less are not going to get any less poor without using more energy. So it's the idea that we can somehow bypass energy is just not going to happen. So we have to figure out some way we can generate that kind of energy without killing the planet and killing ourselves. And I can't think of anything more urgent than that.
Doug, this is John again. I want to hear you say something like, if you had an audience with our next president, that you'd push for more regulation in financial markets. I have a series that I'm writing for the North Bay Bohemian, which is our alternative weekly here in Northern California, and it's actually been picked up by quite a number of bloggers out there, so I must be saying something right. In my series, I'm pushing very hard for the regulation of things that have been heretofore unregulated, namely swaps and derivatives, which is a $50 trillion plus nominal market that Wall Street has run away with. I've been pushing for the regulation of prime brokers, who facilitate all the nefarious things that hedge funds do. And I've been pushing for the regulation, or at least the very close examination of something called the shadow banking system. Do you have any comments on the kind of regulations you would advise our next president to embrace?
Oh, I would enthusiastically agree.